Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of All Things Considered. As always, support USARK. They fight for our rights as reptile keepers. And please, if you're not already a member, please at least get a bronze membership. It's only $40, and you get a t-shirt. But if you can't afford that for whatever reason, and you're still out there buying snakes and all that stuff, I don't understand that, but you do you. But at least sign up for their newsletters and follow them on social media so you can get all the alerts and find out what our legislators are doing to impact our reptile industry and hobby. Most recently, in Arizona, they pretty much introduced a bill that would have pretty much warrantless seizures of your animals based on hearsay. And, I'm no lawyer. I just read the bill and I think it's ridiculous. So, it's just things like that keep on coming up, which is why we have to support USARK, because they are the only body that lobbies for us as a hobby and industry. With that being said, if you're shipping animals, use Redline Shipping, and for your first 2 shipments, use the code Robin60 and you'll get 60% off. And then there's some other codes you can use. I use them because I've had a good experience with them, and they helped us out with the Sea of Serpents auction a couple weeks ago. Okay, let's see who's here. Good morning, Stan. Of course, Stan's always first. Thanks for tuning in. And we have Nikki from Irresistibles. They're going to be our guest next week on Shedding Your Skin. So they just started their own podcast on Saturdays at 6:30 Eastern time, I believe. So next week will be their second one, but they get to hang out with me first. So be sure to tune into that. All right, I know it's early. Some of y'all haven't had your coffee. Some of you aren't even up. So if you're on the replay, gang, thanks for tuning in. So for me today, I'm still recovering from the flu, but luckily for me, I get a remote work day because there's at least 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ground. So I get to do this a little bit longer since I get to sit here anyway in front of my other computer all day to work. So who knows if I will go longer than my normal half hour, 45 minutes. It depends on, interactions from who's here watching live and how much I can talk about my topic for today. So moving forward, I wanted to come up with a topic for each of these Tuesday shows that I could talk about, rather than just me coming in here and be like, oh, here's what I observed and just kind of hopping all over the place. It's sort of, when you're all over the place, it's sort of, well, like, okay, you talked about that last week. You talked about that on Saturday. You talked about that on Thursday. It's the same stuff. So I wanted to sort of refresh things here on this one, since it is just me and I don't have a guest. Maybe in the future, depending on the topic, I may have guests. I don't know. But today I wanted to talk about auctions. And it's just in general across the various platforms. So for me, this one is sort of, I guess, off of the normal auctions. So obviously, if you're doing a fundraiser auction, it's a little bit different, right? You're not going to have your perceived market values, things like that for an animal or an item. Right, you're gonna have whatever people are willing to donate. So, I mean, taking that monetary donation thing out of the question here, I do like them. Good morning, Tommy. Good morning, Kevin. So I do like the idea of that. Right, before, when we were doing these fundraisers, we would do sort of you would donate $5 here or there, or $10 or whatever, something, and get a raffle ticket, right? And then you do a huge spin to win or something like that. And, they would remove your name once you won. I mean, and that's fine, but you really didn't have any say as the person, that was donating, in what you were receiving. You sort of, if you had one ticket to the spin to win, you sort of been like, well, depending on how many people are here, do I let it ride or do I just, take whatever this is? So with moving from the spin to win type of, fundraising auctions, or fundraisers, we went to the auction style, which seems to be working a lot better. Good morning, Eric. Thanks for tuning in. So, sorry, bear with me. Still a little congestion. So with the auction style, you're able to, if there is something that you want or you're interested in, you're able to actually bid that animal up rather than just leaving it up to chance and maybe you get something. Oh, look at this guy! Thanks for tuning in. It's been a while. So yeah, I do like that idea of having the auctions for fundraisers, right? You have people that were going to donate the animals or items anyway, and then it gives the audience a chance to help out whoever the fundraiser is supporting a lot more because the amounts donated may be higher than just the spin to win variety of fundraisers. So I do like that idea. I don't think that we should be inundating everybody with these fundraiser auctions. I mean, when it's something serious, something terrible, like with having to stand or have to Sal, excuse me. Yeah. So I mean, there is a time and a place, and where it's appropriate. I mean, if you're doing one for, I don't know, your sick dog, no, not really. Or for vet bills for your own animals, I don't see doing a fundraiser for that. Now, if you have a tragedy, something like that, sure, 100%. There will be people that are here to support you because that's what we do as a community. And so moving on from that specifically, and lessons learned, at least on my end, from being backstage and putting together a lot of the stuff for one of these fundraiser auctions, make sure everybody is on the same page for the rules and get that all ironed out. Make sure when you start the thing, have your expectations, any restrictions, things like that, stated in the beginning. So if you're bidding on an animal, make sure you can take care of that animal, and make sure it's legal for you to have. Those should be givens, but they have to be said. Make sure if you do get it, we are able to ship them to you. So if you're we're in the United States and you're in Canada, it might be prohibitively expensive to ship that donated animal, or we might not be able to do it because we don't have the permitting, things like that. And another thing, and this one, it sort of bugged me, but I get where the people I was working with were coming from. They extended a deadline to pay for the donations for a couple of weeks after the auction. Now, I get the logic behind it. I get, it can raise more money, right? Maybe you have part of your paycheck this week and then you get paid 2 weeks later and you can, help out more. I get that. I understand that. But from tracking purposes, it's a nightmare. And it was a nightmare to follow up on everything over the course of a couple of weeks rather than the, night of, a couple of days after. So, in my opinion, and that's mostly what I'm bringing up here, is that I think it is best for any auction, anything like that, to make sure that you can afford the animal and afford what you're bidding on and make that payment as soon as possible. And I would think the ideal would be within, 1 day of the event. And that's just my opinion, but it makes things a lot easier, and you're not tracking people down, making sure they paid, talking to 16 different people, trying to figure things out. So for me, that's just easier. So moving on, from those types of auctions to the regular ones we see on YouTube. I think they're fine. They have their place. I don't really have an issue. Sometimes they're show snakes, show animals, things that might move at a show. Sometimes they're a little bit higher. Sometimes they're really good. And I don't have an issue. I think it's a place that we have right now, given the market, that is an outlet, right? So I may take these animals to a show and they might not sell, but when I list them on Morph Market, things might be a little too high or whatever, or there are things I just wouldn't consider to list on Morph Market or something like that. So you have these auctions on YouTube. where now your reach, instead of just where you're located at or the show you're vending, is now expanded to the entire country. So you might find somebody a couple states over that, you know what, I actually need that one for this specific project. And a lot of times, when I'm at a show or, on either side of the table, it's like, well, you're looking for something specific. And yeah, this might be a nice looking animal. It might be, have some good genetics, but you don't need it. So I think these YouTube auctions or Instagram auctions, they have their place. I was able to pick up this guy through one of the ones on the holdback rack. I'd been looking for a male pied, and with genetics that I wanted to work with, multiple codoms, and this one actually is possibly for hypo. So if it proves out, that's awesome, and I got it, at a much better price than anything, off of more market or straight retail or perceived market value. And now it was from Kai over at Lucas Landon, so if I wanted to purchase the animal, I'm sure, something could have been worked out. But I believe those YouTube auctions have their place, right? And right now it works. And if you're looking to move a lot of animals in a short period of time, it works. But you only have that whatever audience is captive on that particular podcast or YouTube or Instagram Live or whatever. So there might be somebody out there that's going to be willing to pay you more, but they're not watching for whatever reason. The algorithm didn't send them your way. But it is a way for people to move some animals. I don't think as the market starts to climb back up that we're going to be seeing as many, but they are good for viewership and things like that. People tune in depending on your channel. So I don't really have an issue with them at all. I just think, sometimes it's easier to just do one of those auctions than put in the work. Posting everything on social media, things like that, going to Craigslist, various things, and you may be vending shows, but I know quite a few people that have done these auctions that also vend shows. So, all right, later, Kevin. Have a good one. But yeah, I don't have an issue. And to anybody that says, for any of these auctions, well, it's going to tank whatever project, tank whatever. It's one instance, and maybe the perceived market value of something, it was higher, right? A lot of these things are pretty arbitrary. Where are we getting our pricing from? Because you can say, oh, it's a recessive. Well, you have recessives that go from, $200 to $1,000+ You have double recessive that go from $400 to, a couple $1,000. So, I mean, if it's just, it's pretty arbitrary, for me. I get you're putting in the work for, making supers that have recessive. I get that you're putting in time. And some things have some staying power, but ultimately it's going to be what somebody is willing to pay for something that's going to drive a market price. Now we can be stuck in our ways and hold on to these animals and say, no, this is what this is. This is what this sells for, and be steadfast. But we're never going to get, a couple thousand people to agree to that. Somebody's going to be like, oh, I've been feeding this thing. I want to sell it. And, I'm going to take the $50 instead of $100. They're not trying to tank the project. They're just selling their animals. So I don't think that, these auctions are going to, make a big dent or like an issue with perceived market value in projects. We get too hung up on price. I do understand that, certain things should be selling for more than other things. I understand that completely, but you get so held up on price and what something should sell for, but it's what something does sell for. So yeah, just calm down. Eventually, if you think that project has staying power, hold on to it. Wait, because eventually, as the market ticks up, the economy gets better, people have more disposable income and spending money, they will spend that money. And if you have something that's worthwhile and you're putting in the work, they will flock to you and buy that animal. So I'm not advocating for fire sales or anything like that, but there's certain things that you can sit on. There's certain things that you should move. Right. I mean, it's all over the place. It fluctuates. So if you're looking at 4 years ago and it's like, okay, this goes for 10K, well, it doesn't. And now it's 2K or somewhere around there, depending on what's in there. It fluctuates. But yeah, I don't have an issue with these auctions. Even if you have somebody that's lowballing, maybe they have something they just want to move off of, right? So they're going to look on Morph Market and they're going to be the cheapest one there, right? By $100 or 200. It doesn't matter. But if you look at the history, even in that a month, 2 months of that project, those animals selling, you're going to see he's the outlier. He's not going to drive the project. Now, if it's a project where everything's been sitting there for a year, maybe, but that also, doesn't say too much about that project being viable. If everything's been sitting there for a year, and this guy comes in with a much cheaper, less expensive animal, well, maybe he's closer to the market price. And it's you guys that are wrong. But I don't think that a one-off and outlier is going to really change anything. It could be like, I got this animal 2 years ago. I really didn't, I changed direction, so I just want to sort of offload, cut my losses, and get it out of my rack. So yeah, I don't have an issue with any of that. And with the auctions on Morph Market, I do think they're slightly better. I talked about it on Saturday, where there's room for improvement, because you can have buyers come in and, like somebody did, put up $100,000 that they were never ever going to be paying to somebody for like a Batman, or there were a couple other animals where somebody just intentionally came in and ruined that auction. Now I didn't follow up afterwards to see if Morph Market brought the auction back point in time, before that bed came in and tanked it. But that member did get banned, but they can come back because there's not really verification on the buyer side on Morph Market. So, I mean, I think if there's more controls, things like that on Morph Market to prevent stuff like that from happening in the future, I do think it's, a good idea to have these auctions, because you can have something that's sitting on your store for a while. Maybe you're not getting the traction, depending on, what people are searching for, if your page pops up in the feed, things like that. But if you put it on for auction, now you're, amongst, 7 pages of things going on of all species. So if they're just filtering by ball pythons, maybe I'm assuming there's probably like 5 pages now, since it's the most popular animal. But you're able to get more of an audience, and if somebody needs that animal, now they're seeing it, rather than you're just hoping that you come across in however the feed shows up on when you're searching on Morph Market, or if somebody's not looking for you particularly. So I do like that, and it gives you the audience of Morph Market, so it's a bigger audience than, let's say, one of these YouTube or Instagram auctions. So I do think it's a good idea. But there are also certain animals that it just won't work for. You can't put a hatchling male pastel on there. Nobody's going to want to pay shipping. So that's either going to be that's a wholesale animal or show animal for relatively inexpensive. But if you have something with a couple codoms and you're not paying for shipping, on the breeder side, but if it's a higher level animal, you can pay for shipping. That's probably going to draw more people in. So I don't really have. So, for instance, if I put up that pied from earlier, and obviously it's a possible head hypo, but it's a 2-gene male pied. So if somebody needs that, and I'm covering shipping, people are probably going to be bidding on that. But it also depends on what you have available, what you're willing to put up. I mean, I have a female butter that I'm looking to move. She's probably going to have to go at a show or locally, just because shipping her is going to be pretty expensive. So even if I were to put her on the Morph Market auction, right, she's listed there for $200 right now on my page. I've gotten some clicks and whatever, but again, 1 gene, it's been around forever. Shipping is going to be expensive. So even if it goes for $50, maybe that's great. with shipping, it's probably going to be getting you close to what I have her listed for now. So I mean, I would get some cash, and they'd be paying for shipping, but it'd still be pretty cheap compared to everything else on there. So I mean, it depends if they're looking for that animal. I'm debating whether or not I want to put her up for that auction with no reserve, because she is taking up space. She's done her job. So we'll see. I mean, I do have a couple other things available that I could potentially put on there. I'm just waiting to see what some other things do, because some of them are like double het males, and a project that I don't need that specific one in. But I don't have a problem with those, with auctions in general, right? People are going to pay what they're willing to pay at the end of the day, and that rhymed unintentionally. Morning, Angie. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I don't get, like, everybody can have their opinions whether or not it works for them. Maybe you don't like the auctions because you have your perceived market value for something. You put it on no reserve and you got a couple hundred less than you thought you were going to get. But again, it's what people are willing to pay. That's determining the prices on these things. It goes with everything. Like, say I buy a guitar for $2,500 today. Well, now it's not new anymore, and given that it's brand new, made recently, the value, the second I take it out of the store, is going to go down, because it's used, even if it's in great condition, and it's a nice guitar and all that stuff. I'm never going to get what I paid for it. Now, in 30 years, if I still have it and it becomes vintage, now the value goes up. So I mean, it's like I have this perceived value because I paid X for it. It's gonna, it must sell for X, and I don't get that. It's like, okay, it's what people are. So if you put this out there if I put that guitar out there for $2,500 and nobody's buying it, and somebody goes, hey, I'll give you $1,200. Okay, well, I mean, that's a kick in the pants to me, because it's half of what I spent. But if that's the best offer I got, that's really what the market is for that item. And don't be offended. It's just, you're selling it. You're probably not going to recoup what you invest in. Now, I mean, guitars and cars and things like that are different than these animals. But the point is that the buyer, in most cases, is going to determine the value of that. Now, if it's something rare, if it's a rare commodity, and there's limited amounts of this item or this animal, right? Say you're one of the few people working in a project, something like that, and there aren't many available to the public, then your price has some staying power. But if it's something, like a pastel, clown, pie, something that's been around for, almost as long as the hobby in general, you kind of have to let the buyer determine what it is. Now, if like I said, if it's rare, if there's not many of them, sure, you can be a stickler on price. But if there's, a couple hundred of the same thing that you have available, don't get upset when it's not what you think it's worth. It is what it is. That's how the market works. And like I said before, these are my opinions, but in my observations. So I'm not, I'm not an economist. I'm not, my expertise is not in a lot of the things I touch on in here. And if I talked about what my actual expertise is in, y'all would be extremely bored, because nobody wants to hear about, low-income housing, government regulations, and all that stuff. But, it's my opinions and my observations. And yeah, I don't want to, sound like, oh, I'm being negative and things like that. I am being realistic. Sure. Would I love to see some of these things go for more? Yes. Would I like to move some of these animals that I have for sale? Yes. But, and some of them I am willing to settle for a lot less than what I think they should be going for or selling for. So I think, I don't think a single gene pastel should be relegated to that $20 normal status, but it is, especially like a male. So hopefully these things look good the next time I'm at a show, and they can go to a good home, because people are buying with their eyes and they see the price tag. So hopefully they do move the next show I vend. They are going to be growing. So as some pastels do, they don't look the best, but they're still nice things. So if you want a cool ball python, but yeah, I don't have an issue with these auctions. I think they're good. They're another avenue. Um, I'd rather move something on one of these YouTube auctions or Morph Market auction or through one of these fundraiser auctions than you post it on Craigslist or something like that where I'm dealing with some random person that might be trying to scam me. I think there's more protections on the other end. Excuse me. But again, if you're doing them on YouTube, things like that, rules have to be in place. And I like the one that Holdback Rack and the other people have, where if you don't pay up or you flake out, you're banned. You can no longer participate. Not that you're going to be publicly shamed or anything like that, but I do like that idea. Like there have to be some consequences for you, not holding up your end. But with Craigslist, heck, I could post something on there, go there and get robbed. Or if I want to have payment up front, right? So I go through PayPal that I don't want to take cash, right? I want some cover my butt a bit. So they pay me on Venmo, PayPal, whatever. We go there. Here's the animal, and then they dispute it, get the money back. Now they got the money and the animal. So I want to try to take as many steps as possible to protect myself, so I don't get screwed over by things like that. And I've heard that happen. So if I'm not using friends and family, or I'm using Square or something to give me some more protection, don't get offended. I probably have included an extra little fee in the price of the animal, or I don't really care about it. Yeah, I mean, I think as somebody that's selling things, you have to do things to protect yourself and avoid getting scammed. And I only really work with people that I know. I'm getting from, for the most part, breeders in my little Pennsylvania crew, as we call it. But there's some people from Maryland and other places in there. But I know these guys. I talk to these guys daily. They're at the shows that I'm either at or vending. So it's nice to have that. And I've been to most of their places, or I know what they're they meet my approval. So it's not like it's somebody completely random that just has this animal that's the right price that I've never heard of before. I don't really work that way. Like, I have to know you to purchase something from you. Nothing against you. Is that, as the person coming across my Morph Market feed, but if I haven't heard of you and I can't find you on social media, people that I talk to don't know who you are, chances are I'm not going to buy from you. And again, it's nothing against you. It's more of I want to be able to do my research. And if all I have is a couple Morph Market reviews, but there's no social media, you're not local to me, so you're not vending shows, chances are I'm not going to be doing business with you. Because I want to be able to do my research and know, what I'm getting at. So if I can't see pictures on social media of what your setup looks like, things like that. And yeah, I get it. I got wooden racks. They work. My snakes eat and breed. But if you're pulling out, the tubs and there's shed and a couple poops everywhere, it's like, okay, you don't really clean that often, type of thing. That's a turnoff for me. But so this is sort of dovetailing into do the work, right? Again, some people may be older and not apt to social media. That's fine. But if you've been around that long, you've had some staying power, and you're probably familiar in your market and things like that. But if you're newer, you're in this a couple of years, get out and do social media. Show off your animals. Again, a lot of us aren't comfortable doing this on this YouTube thing where we're out talking to the world, and maybe we get nervous. And yeah, I was nervous to begin with. It took me quite some time to get comfortable behind the camera, to get comfortable talking to people, talking to myself. You know, right now I'm just going on the chat, and you know, sometimes it's active, sometimes it's not, especially in this morning show. But I do see I have around 9 people, so that's actually pretty good for me on, you know, watching live. Since it is early, it's, you know, now 8 o'clock on the East Coast. But yeah, do the work. I mean, there are some people that, you know, they don't do YouTube. Maybe they're in the chats, but they don't have a YouTube channel, no YouTube presence whatsoever aside from the chats. But their Instagram is absolutely amazing. So, for example, somebody like Pip Stalkers, go over to their Instagram page. You're going to see multiple animals daily, and good quality pictures, good advertising, things like that. And also, huge thanks to them for putting up a lot of donations for the Stand of Sea of Serpents auction. So, if you're not following them, check them out. But you know, they have a pretty decent social media presence. You're able to see projects they're working on. And I think that's what you need to do. I mean, you can't say, oh, these animals aren't moving when you're not doing anything to move them. So, you know, take good pictures, limit the kinds of posts that you make and the kinds of things that you share, because it does, you know, influence people on the other end. So if I'm following you and most of the stuff I'm seeing you post is completely unrelated to reptiles, it's like, well, what are you doing? You know, I don't need to see people sharing, you know, motivational TikTok reels or things like that. You know, show me the animals that you're working with. And I think if you keep your content focused solely on that reptile audience, it's gonna. I think that my opinion, that will help you a lot more. At least from my end, on the other side of the screen, I don't want to see a lot of the stuff that's unrelated. You have a personal page for that. And if you're just trying to get views and things like that, and that's why you're sharing all this stuff that's not your own content, okay. But I mean, again, then your page goes from a reptile page to just a meme page, and that's how your algorithm is going to work. So, you know, do the work. If when you're on social media, you know, you don't have to be on every single platform. You can. I have a Facebook, but really, only things that get posted there are what I post on Instagram, because I cross post. And for my reels on Instagram, I'm using whatever I'm putting on YouTube that day. If I even decide to put up a reel, because I don't like doing the same thing twice. So I guess I could find an aggregator that will do it all for me. But I'm lazy when it comes to that. I'll just focus on the 2 platforms that I use the most, YouTube and Instagram. But yeah, I mean, take the time, proofread, make sure what you're posting is quality. Now, I'm not talking about the animals themselves. You can take a beautiful picture of a single gene pastel, right? Get a light box. I have a DSLR camera. I use my iPhone because it's better, and my camera is currently broken. But you know, make sure you take a good picture. You know, you're not like this when you take it when you're taking the picture of the video. You're shaking, and you know, it's blurry and things like that. Take a good picture, because that it goes a long way. You know, yeah, it's fine to show off the animals in the tubs while you're, you know, if they're locked up, things like that. Things where you can't take a good photo in a light box with lighting and things like that. And light boxes are relatively inexpensive. So that would be my recommendation, is get a light box. You know, you can adjust everything, and you know, I think it was only like $75. But take good pictures. You know, put good content out there, and eventually, you know, you'll gain traction. You know, all it takes is one share from somebody big, or you know, a couple people sharing out your stuff, going on these shows, being in the chats, being active. Because and there are people that are much further along in this industry and hobby than me, but I have a bigger following, but they have a bigger name. So it's sort of interesting where, you know, people know of somebody, but their social media game isn't the best. And we talk about, you know, certain genetics that these people have, and they just, you know, they are putting in the work. They're taking great pictures. They're doing great stuff, but for whatever reason, they don't have a following. And, you know, I think a lot of it has to do on the interaction side, right? If you're just if all you're doing is posting and that's it, you might not get out as far as your basic following, right? So I went over to follow you. I'm liking your post. That's going to be your interaction. You're interacting with me. Whereas, if I'm on the other end and I'm interacting with various pages, well, if I'm supporting somebody, the chances are they're going to follow me back. So I think you do need to do that to grow. But at the same time, you can be huge and only follow 75 people and have 10K followers. So I mean, it all depends where you're at. If you're already coming in with a name, so say I have a huge Instagram following and I switch over to YouTube, chances are people will follow me over to YouTube, and I don't really have to put in the work as much. I just have to be there, and people will come to it. So yeah, it all depends on, but I do think you do need that presence. And if you are newer, smaller, get out there and interact with people. If you have a Morph Market auction going on, post it to your YouTube, post it to your Facebook, post it to your Instagram. If you just have it on your Morph Market, you're leaving it just up to that audience that's there looking. If you bring it over to your other social media platforms, now you've increased the amount of people that know about this, and now somebody might see it if other people are sharing out things like that and go over and bid on your auction. So I do think you need to definitely put in the work, and it does take time. And at first, if you're just starting doing YouTube videos, YouTube lives, you're not going to be the best at it. You're going to look back on that first video, that first live, and be like, "What was I doing?" And I can speak for I think I can speak for a lot of people that don't have a background in marketing, a background in video editing, social media stuff. That's the case. You're going to go back and be like, "What was I doing? That video is terrible." But over time, you're going to get better and better and better. You're going to find new tools, new tricks, new things that work. So don't get discouraged in the beginning. I know for me, only recently have I been starting to gain some more traction on social media. I've been stuck at about 2,000 followers on Instagram for quite a while. But then I stopped posting stuff on Instagram. So people weren't really getting my content. I was just, maybe referring to my YouTube stuff, but I wasn't posting animals, things like that. And I started doing that again, started getting more followers. And for YouTube, I was stuck around 500 for the longest time. I started doing shorts every day. And then I got back on the schedule of doing lives, which, has certainly got me to a bigger audience, but I stopped doing videos and I just started doing that again. So I hemorrhaged a lot of watch hours, but my subscriber count has grown. So I think this year, as I'm doing those things, I'll see some growth. But yeah, you have to be consistent. Even if you're sick, like me today, me on Saturday, I was there, behind the screen, behind the camera, talking to you people. Because if I miss, I get penalized, and I've seen what that looks like. It looks like for me being very, very close to monetization to now it's going to be I'm always starting from square one. So I do, and this isn't my opinion. It's you have to be consistent. If you say you're going to be live every week at this time, be live every day, a week, every week at this time. If you're going to do shorts, do them every day. If you're going to put out a video, put it out every, however, whatever your schedule is, put it out then. And I think that's what you have to do. And, it's going to get you to a wider audience, things like that. And it's all marketing and advertising. At least that's how I look at it, right? Because the more people that are seeing my content, the more people that recognize my brand, recognize my name. So I'm going to be, I'm cognizant of that now, and I can't just do this as I feel like it. There has to be a plan. So, that's what in my opinion, that you guys should be doing. Putting in the work, posting on social media, interacting on social media, and eventually your channels will grow. But you do have to putting out some decent content, right? because if you're, I hate to say this, I mean, if your pictures aren't good, your videos aren't good, sure, you may be charismatic enough to sort of pull that along. I know I'm not. So, I have to talk about certain things a certain way. I have to present myself a certain way. I have to, make sure my videos look visually appealing. There's an intro and outro, and it looks good. And, for some people, you can get by on charisma and personality. I know I can't. I'm an introvert. This is like exceedingly difficult for me to do week in and week out, but I do it. And I feel that I've grown, as a person. I've grown my brand, things like that. So, that's my advice, my parting wisdom. Take it or leave it. I don't really care at the end of the day, because I'm going to do my thing. And this is, what I'm choosing to do. And I try to say things on here that I am personally doing. So it's not like, well, he's just saying that, and then he goes off and does this, or, takes a break. So I am aware that last year, I took some breaks. I wasn't really as consistent as I should have been. And this year, I am making that change. So yeah, I don't want to tell you anything that I'm not actually doing, or things that I'm actively not doing. So with that being said, I don't really want to go on too much. I've talked about the auctions. That was the topic of the day. I went on a little bit of a social media tangent, but it all gets back to the marketing yourself, being consistent, putting out good quality things. So, all right. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in today. Depending on how I feel and what I'm doing Thursday, I'll be on the RWO show. I forget whose channel it's on this week. And then on Saturday, for Shedding Your Skin, I will have Nikki and Kurt from Irresistible. So I'm actually looking forward to having them on, because it's going to be their second week of doing YouTube Lives, and I have them before their second show, so I can sort of get some, well, how'd the first one go sort of thing, and I really get to know them, but and try to steer clear from some of the things that they may have talked about on their first live, so it's not a rehash of the same content. So I'm going to go ahead and rewatch that at some point and, make a game plan for Saturday. But tune in. They're really good people. I'm excited for that show. And yeah, I will see you next time. I'll have a video on Thursday. I don't know what it's going to be about yet. Obviously, it's going to be about ball pythons. I might do another morph video. So I'm thinking looking at a recessive or a codon that I have here and just going through the different ones that I have. And just sort of talking about, the influence and things like that between the various animals. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'll probably do it today since I am working remotely and it's a snow day. So I do have some time. So there's no excuse for me to not have a video for you guys this Thursday. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.